That was the state of Ireland as to freedom of petition and remonstrance 20 years after the Union. Do you suppose that would have been the case if Ireland had retained her own Parliament? No, sir. Other cases I will not dwell upon at this late hour, simply on account of the lateness of the hour. From 1857, when we passed an Act which enabled the landlords of Ireland to sell improvements on their tenants' holdings over their heads, down to 1880, when a most limited and carefully framed bill, the product of Mr. Forster's benevolence, was passed by this House and rejected by an enormous majority in the House of Lords, thereby precipitating the Land Act of 1881, it is impossible to stand by the legislation of this House as a whole since the Union. I have sometimes heard it said, "You have had all kinds of remedial legislation." The two chief items are the disestablishment of the Church and the reform of the land laws. But what did you say of these? Why, you said the change in the land laws was confiscation and the disestablishment of the Church was sacrilege. You cannot at one and the same time condemn these measures as confiscation and sacrilege, and at the same time quote them as proofs of the justice with which you have acted to Ireland. I must further say that we have proposed this measure because Ireland wants to make her own laws. It is not enough to say you are prepared to make good laws. You were prepared to make good laws for the colonies. You did make good laws for the colonies, according to the best of your light. The colonists were totally dissatisfied with them. You accepted their claim to make their own laws. Ireland, in our opinion, has a claim not less urgent. Now, sir, what is before us? What is before us in the event of the rejection of this bill? What alternatives have been proposed? Here I must for a moment comment on the fertile imagination of my right honourable friend the member for West Birmingham. He has proposed alternatives, and plenty of them. My right honourable friend says that a dissolution has no terrors for him. I do not wonder at it. I do not see how a dissolution can have any terrors for him. That in whichever direction the winds of heaven may blow they must fill his sails. Let me illustrate my meaning. I will suppose different cases. Supposing at the election, I mean that an election is a thing like Christmas, it is always coming. Supposing that at an election public opinion should be very strong in favour of the bill. My right honourable friend would then be perfectly prepared to meet that public opinion and tell it, "I declared strongly that I adopted the principle of the bill." On the other hand, if public opinion was very adverse to the bill, my right honourable friend again is in complete armour, because he says, "Yes, I voted against the bill." Supposing again public opinion is in favour of a very large plan for Ireland. My right honourable friend is perfectly provided for that case also. The government plan was not large enough for him, and he proposed, in his speech on the introduction of the bill, that we should have a measure on the basis of federation, which goes beyond this bill. Lastly, and now I have very nearly boxed the compass, supposing that public opinion should take quite a different turn, and instead of wanting very large measures for Ireland, should demand very small measures for Ireland, still the resources of my right honourable friend are not exhausted, because then he is able to point out that the last of his plans was 4 provincial councils controlled from London. Under other circumstances I should, perhaps, have been tempted to ask the secret of my right honourable friend's recipe. As it is, I am afraid I am too old to learn it. But I do not wonder that a dissolution has no terrors for him, because he is prepared in such a way, and with such a series of expedients, to meet all the possible contingencies of the case. Well, sir, when I come to look at these practical alternatives and provisions, I find that they are visibly creations of the vivid imagination, born of the hour and perishing with the hour, totally and absolutely unavailable for the solution of a great and difficult problem, the weight of which, and the urgency of which, my right honourable friend himself, in other days, has seemed to feel. But I should not say now that our plan has possession of the field without a rival. Lord Salisbury has given us a rival plan. My first remark is that Lord Salisbury's policy has not been disavowed. It is therefore adopted. What is it? Another laugh? It has been disavowed. What is it? Great complaints are made because it has been called a policy of coercion, and Lord Salisbury is stated to have explained in another place that he is not favourable to coercion, but only to legislative provisions for preventing interference by one man with the liberty of another, and for ensuring the regular execution of the law. And that, you say, is not coercion? Was that your view 6 months ago? What did the Liberal government propose when they went out of office? They proposed to enact clauses against the— No, 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 no. They never made any proposal. Perhaps not, but it was publicly stated. It was stated to me in a letter by the right honourable gentleman. In October. Certainly, but it was stated in order to correct a rather gross error of the right honourable gentleman. It was stated as what we had intended when we were going out of office. Unless I am greatly mistaken, it was publicly stated in this House long before. However, it is not very important. What were the proposals that we were about to make, or that we were supposed to be about to make? Well, a proposal about boycotting, to prevent one man interfering with the liberty of another, and a proposal about a change of venue to ensure the execution of the ordinary law. And how were these proposals viewed? Did not the Tories go into the election putting upon their placards, "Vote for the Tories and no coercion"? No, no. I do not say that every Tory did it. The honourable and gallant baronet cries "No." No doubt he did not do it, but he had no Irish voters. If I had, I would have done it. Then it means this, that these proposals which we are about to make were defined as coercion by the Tories at the election, and Lord Salisbury now denies them to be coercion, and it is resented with the loudest manifestations of displeasure when any one on this side of the House states that Lord Salisbury has recommended 20 years of coercion. Lord Salisbury recommended, as he says himself, 20 years of those measures which last year were denounced by the Tories. But what did Lord Salisbury call them himself? What were his own words? His words were, "My alternative policy is that Parliament should enable the Government of England to govern Ireland." What is the meaning of those words? Their meaning, in the first instance, is this: the Government does not want the aid of Parliament to exercise their executive power. It wants the aid of Parliament for fresh legislation. The demand that the Parliament should enable the Government of England to govern Ireland is a demand for fresh legislative power. This fresh legislative power, how are they to use? Apply that recipe honestly, consistently, and resolutely for 20 years, and at the end of that time you will find Ireland will be fit to accept any gift in the way of local government or repeal of coercion laws that you may wish to give. And yet objections and complaints of misrepresentation teem from that side of the House when any one on this side says that Lord Salisbury recommended coercion, when he himself applies that same term in his own words. A question was put to me by my honourable friend the member for Bermondsey, Mr. Thorold Rogers, in the course of his most instructive speech. My honourable friend had a serious misgiving as to the point of time. Were we right in introducing this measure now? He did not object to the principle, he intimated a doubt as to the moment. I may ask my honourable friend to consider what would have happened had we hesitated as to the duty before us, had we used the constant efforts that would have been necessary to keep the late government in office, and allowed them to persevere in their intentions. On the 26th of January they proposed what we termed a measure of coercion, and I think we were justified in so terming it, because anything attempting to put down a political association can hardly have another name. Can it be denied that that legislation must have been accompanied by legislation against the press, legislation against public meetings, and other legislation without which it would have been totally ineffective? Would it have been better if a great controversy cannot be avoided, and I am sensible of the evil of this great controversy? I say it is better that parties should be matched in conflict upon a question of giving a great boon to Ireland, rather than, as we should have been if the policy of January 26 had proceeded, that we should have been matched and brought into conflict, and the whole country torn with dispute and discussion upon the policy of a great measure of coercion. That is my first reason. My second reason is this. Let my honourable friend recollect that this is the earliest moment in our parliamentary history when we have the voice of Ireland authentically expressed in our hearing. Majorities of Home Rulers there may have been upon other occasions. A practical majority of Irish members has never been brought together for such a purpose. Now, first, we can understand her. Now, first, we are able to deal with her. We are able to learn authentically what she wants and wishes, what she offers and will do, and as we ourselves enter into the strongest moral and honourable